One.
We're we've been digitized into the intranets.
Glitching already.
Yeah. Hey guys, this is the first, the last, the Nerdom and gals. I don't want to exclude anybody, and all of you out in the interwebs and outer space and wherever. If you're trapped on some server somewhere, you probably don't hear us. That's not attached to the internet. But hey to you as well. Hey, I'm Thomas, and I'm here with Mike. Mike, how you doing? Are you feeling better since last week?
I tell you what, I am. This is 2 Sundays from when I first started coming down with it, the COVID and all that. For I was out for a good week, no joke, and a little bit longer, but yeah, I'm doing great. Still have a little bit of this, that, but for the most part, I'm 100% back to normal, back to our normal routine on Sunday, and here we are. Just happy to be back in the swing of things for sure.
Yeah, we're back. We're back to Disney property. We've got Tron and Tron Legacy to talk about today. Back in the day when I'm old enough to remember when it came out. It came out with Blade Runner, E.T., the Thing. That was 1982.
Yes.
And yeah, we didn't. That was right before VCRs got real popular. So they still did this thing where they would put the audio of a movie on a record, and you could listen to sound bites. Yeah, it was the whole movie as an audio record. And we had
literally the soundtrack, literally the movie soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
We had The Empire Strikes Back, and we had Tron. Some of these, and so we didn't have VHS tapes to watch over and over. We had that record to listen to over and over again. So some of the audio lines in this movie always clicks, and I know them from heart. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I I did not see this until much later in my in my childhood. But when you see it, it's one of those iconic things that you don't really forget. If you're even sci-fi adjacent and you like that kind of thing, or computers or whatever, and it was just something else entirely that became its own cult status.
Yeah,
sure.
it was unique for its time, and unique even today. There's nothing quite like it. And just to back in 82, everybody knew about computers. Everybody was kind of scared and had thoughts of what computers could and would do. But yeah, we had no idea. So a lot of a lot of the jargon dialogue in it was as strange to us as the dialogue from a Star Wars movie. When you talk about programs and bits and all this stuff, RAM, no one had any idea what you talk about. In fact, it was a hard sell for movie theaters, or not movie theaters, but movie companies, to try to get it made, as well as the actors. The only one that was sold on it right away was Jeff Bridges. Oddly enough, they didn't think they could get him, but yeah, he immediately saw the potential. And Bruce Boxleitner, the guy that plays Tron in it, he was sent the script to by his agent, and he was working on a TV Western at the time. And he, in an interview, he recalls him being on horseback, all dudded up in his Western attire with his hat, gun, and everything, and he is sitting on this horse reading the Tron script. It's like, what in the hell is this?
That's
programs awesome. You got, I don't understand this. I have no idea. And just the image of him reading that Tron script on a horseback on a Western set. It's classic.
If you could be a fly on the wall, that's for sure. You'd want to be a part of that for sure.
And then so he told his agent, no, no way, I'm not doing this. And then also Disney at the time wasn't what it is today. It was this
Mhm.
monolith. It was they mainly did kids movies like Herbie, the Love Bug. And
Right.
so it actually to do a Disney movie at that time was to dip down in your acting career. It wasn't a badge of honor. It was like, oh yeah, I'm doing Disney. Is maybe even worse than doing TV at the time. You're getting on a Disney project. So,
Yeah.
but the thing that turned him around was he heard that Jeff Bridges actually said yes to it. So he goes, well, maybe there's something to this, and that's how they roped him in. And then once the director and writer started talking about it to him, he understood what it could be.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me. Of course, this all gets memory hold, and collectively we kind of lose the far ends of our memory and collective and whatnot. But like there is a time when my parents and your parents were growing up, when they would have seen, they would have been good to go to see, Snow White. And I think a lot of people forget that, like way back when, Disney actually was innovative on more than one front. Like where it came for rotoscoping, like for Snow White, that was the first time that had been done and applied in that way. And I think the box office was far different too, as well. Like where they would release the same movie multiple times until they hit the number that they needed to or whatever. Of course, it was a lot more special back then and not as widespread, I think, as today. Like today, it's very blase, and it kind of just goes, it just blends into the background that there's a movie theater and you can go see these things. And now of course we have screens that are not quite rivaling that in movie theaters, but definitely which are far cry from like what you would find in the average household in 85 or 95 or even 2005. But anyway, kind of pulling it back, like this is back when Disney itself was much smaller, and they had to come up
Mhm.
and be innovative. And this is one of those movies that they pushed the boundaries
Yeah,
on too.
right.
And it was just part of a cohort of other movies where I don't know where you would want to start. I'm not a deep cinephile here at all, and I don't claim to
Yeah.
be, but like you had, Star Wars, which was very mind blowing, and the special effects and the practical effects, what they could do with that, kind of move it. This is only just a few years later, really. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just it,
Well,
it
it's
really is
mhm.
remarkable.
Right. It was a passion project by the writer director Steven Linsberg. I believe Bonnie McBride also helped out on the script as well. But and I think they're credited in the movie as the script writers. But from what I heard, the what actually ended up on the screen had nothing of her writing in it as
Okay,
far as
interesting.
dialogue. But Steven Linsberg, he was um way ahead of his time. He was a got into animation in Boston, and he started up an animation team. And it was kind of unheard of doing an animation outside of New York or Hollywood. And so
I didn't know that.
he started up his animation team. And one of the things he really was everybody was kind of into was that backlighting
Hmm. Right,
animation where everything's kind of outlined, and that
neon and
neon
glowy. Yeah.
blue and red and all that. So one of the first animations he did was a logo for his company, and it was this kind of bearded guy. I think it's online too. um a bearded guy with these two Tron discs. Well, of course, we didn't know it was Tron. Actually, he called the character Tron, and he like throws the two discs, and it was kind of a cool little logo. And so he sold it to radio company, radio stations around the country as their little stinger for the ads and whatnot.
Oh, okay. I did not know. That's
Yeah,
really cool. That's really cool. Yeah.
yeah. So
The
so yeah. Mhm.
yeah, I remember being a kiddo, and it wasn't like I was a super fan or anything like that, but like I do remember aspects of it, and I remember once in a while, of course, we get of course, I didn't have Legos like everybody else. Like I had, Mega Blocks or whatever the hell they had back in that they were generic. I had occasional a nice Lego, set here or there, but for the most part, it was more, I'm also in a really big family. So I had first crack at some things, and I actually had first crack at like what my uncle would have from like whenever he was my age. He's 10 years older than me. So I got to play with some of his stuff a little bit, but I do remember distinctly these things. I don't know what you call them, but these kind of things in the movie, I remember recreating them with like my Lego sets, and then like they were the big baddie, or they were the shuttle, or or whatever kind of fun thing that I would play with as a kid. That you incorporate multiple. We were kind of talking about that just a little bit before we started the show, but that kind of figurine and action figure kind of thing. But
it's a lot of iconic design.
Yeah, and this was not something you could go buy in the store, as far as I know.
No.
I mean, maybe you could for maybe for a limited time, but not by the time I came up and saw it. It was those toys were all long gone.
Yeah. No, I did have they came out with the Tron wasn't as huge a success as Disney had hoped, but yeah, they did come up with a few action figures. I did get a couple of figures, the Tron and the Clue or Jeff Bridges characters action figure. They were kind of cool because they were translucent and they were all blue with painted in outlines on them. And there was I was looking, and there was a light cycle, but I never got that. I just got the action figures. But yeah, so Steven Lisberger, he had the idea for Tron, and he kind of wanted to do it in-house as a independent project, and he wanted to do it animated with some computer generated effects, and then he started talking to different computer people that dealt with computers and had the big massive mainframes and whatnot to do that. And they one of the guys they talked to convinced him to try to do it live action. And it was and then so they started to go around to various studios like Warner Brothers and whatnot, and all of them turned them down. They didn't understand what they were trying to do. They didn't want to take the risk. And so their very last person that their company they went to was Disney, because Disney at the time was pretty locked in on what they were doing, their animation and their movies. They didn't think they would take a risk for something like this. But Disney at the time wasn't doing so well financially, and they were wanting the heads of it were wanting to be in reclaim their role as innovators of animation. And so it was sort of like kismet. They wanted this project because it would increase their clout as far as them pushing technology and whatnot. And so yeah, it was the perfect marriage at the time to get it done. And basically they didn't really see how it would get done, but Steven Lisberger had such a vision, and he actually storyboarded the whole movie, which was pretty much unheard of at the time to do storyboarding for the whole thing. And so he could show them what it was going to be, and he was so confident in as into what they could do that they all into it. And except for actually they said that the Disney animators, they saw these guys coming in from outside, and they didn't want any part of it. They thought they felt threatened. So the guys that did Tron had to pull in some outside animators and whatnot to do that. So this was kind of a combination live action, animated, and this was one of the very first movies, definitely the first one that did heavy CGI. And so the CGI was done by these massive computers. It was done by, I think, 4 different companies at the time. I think Triple I, Magi, Digital, I forget what they're called, Digital Factory, I think. And then I think there was one other, but it all got split up through them. So it was kind of a challenge to make everything look similar or from the same world. But but yeah, and and they couldn't do like the way we do CGI now to have it fully animated. They would program in the sequence. They could only do still images, so they had to do it like film. They had a camera set up in front of the computer monitor to take the film image of the computer image, that frame of film.
Huh.
So it was almost like
That's
stop motion animation, in fact. So it was crazy. I think the most powerful computer was able to do 338 megabytes or something like
Oh,
that
wow.
processing power.
Damn.
So so it was crazy. Yeah, one of the key animators, digital animators, him and the other guy, I saw an interview with them, and they said it was kind of crazy because you basically had to tell, you know, you had all these axes as far as the 3D image of where it should be,
Mhm.
and and you see those scenes like in the light cycle race where they're going through and you know, zipping through and everything, and there's a very cinematic thing of the regulators or wherever those things are that fly down and are
Right.
tracking those light cycles. It's very dynamic scene with it going like that. And there were that guy was charged with giving it that character of, you know, of a Disney movie, of having it have character as it moves around and whatnot. So he had to plot all those numbers, and basically, if you put in some key ones, it would generate all the possibilities. And basically, they had like 600 lines of numbers that they had feed through through a telephone wire to the computer guy, the programmers, to program into their computers to actually digitally animate it. But yeah, it was it wasn't like being able to just send a file over. They really had to
Oh no.
send those. They had to put it into their computers, get it printed out, and then actually you know, send those printouts, and then the programmer had to individually key in each line of those numbers. So it was a huge process of getting this animation done, and then the whole thing with matting that in with live action. Um, they and also the lights on the characters, you know, the circuits and whatnot. They shot the film black and white, and then they would blow up the individual film frames, and then they would have animators go in and individually color in those lines on their outfit
That's awesome. That's
individually. So
awesome.
that was all of those circuit lines are animated by I think a Taiwan animation team. They would send those
Oh.
frames over.
Yeah, this brings back all the feels, like just kind of catching this little like old school VHS. You know, they were like the white plastic that opened
Mhm,
up, that were little. They were
mhm.
oversized for video cassette. It wasn't just cardboard that you slid it in and out, whatever. But anyway, this hits all the feels, multiple ways, because I remember watching many. You know, you'd have that classic Disney logo, you know, Walt Disney Home Video, you know, that like with the Disney thing, like, you know, that you were going to have a fun time.
Yeah.
Whether that still persists to today, don't get me wrong, but not like then, not like then, like where you had to gather around and kind of like watch this thing. Yeah, that the way that they did this was, I only read a little bit about, not nearly as much as you, not as much as I should have, but
Oh,
um yeah, this one,
I kind of nerded out on it.
no, that's totally fine, totally fine. I just know that when they did some of these things, it was unique and adventurous, especially for, you know, a
Mhm.
very conservative family video kind of company. It's I wouldn't say it's a wonder, but I, like I said, credit where due. Disney was never afraid to kind of push the ball forward when it came to you know, innovating things. Nowadays, you know, kind of the joke, I guess, would be they just buy whoever and then they just kind of whatever. But As with all things, yeah, this was really cool. I really enjoyed
Yeah.
rewatching this because I hadn't seen it probably. I remember I actually saw the second one, the 2010 version, in the theater. I remember I actually went to saw it because I was actually really happy to see it come through. And I think that was probably the last time I saw the original, just for entertainment's sake. But that's really
Yeah.
cool. That's really
Yeah. Yeah, it's been about that long for me too. I bought the I got all this information because I bought like the when 2010 came out on Blu-ray, there was a
good.
special box set, and it's in shape of a Tron disc. I can go get it if I want to take a look at it, but
That's
it's
really cool.
it's a Tron disc. It used to light up, but I need to get batteries for it now. But yeah, it had
Man, that's so cool.
the original as the new one, and then the original disc has a like a hour and a half documentary on the original on that was made in when it out on DVD, and the special edition of DVD came out in 2012 on the 30th
Um,
anniversary, and then I think it was no, it was the 20th anniversary. This year we missed it in July. There it was the 40th anniversary of the movie.
right on. Yeah, it was.
Yep.
Yeah, right on the
Yeah.
dot. 40 years.
Yeah. 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 That's hey. But yeah, so yeah, I got the DVD, and I watched all of that stuff back in the day, and then so when I was revisiting, I rewatched all of the extra stuff, so I know what I was sounded like I knew what I was talking about in this, yeah,
Young
so
Jeff Bridges.
Bridges, yeah, and
Yeah, so young.
that's actually that's the headshot that they used to digitally scan in Jeff Bridges for the Tron Legacy to make his
That's
young
cool.
face.
That's awesome.
but but yeah, and that guy, I forget his name, the actor, uh he uh he had no clue what was going on in this movie, but he was used to playing the crotchety old guy that was kind of wise beyond his years, and so there was an
Yoda.
interview with him on the old DVD, and he's like, I didn't know what was going on until we all were kind of confused, and so we went to the director, and he said, "Oh, you're in a pinball machine." I think the guy kind of misunderstood what that it was a video game instead of a pinball machine. But yeah, he goes, I was in a pinball machine. And he goes, oh, that makes sense.
That's adorable. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, and
awesome.
that guy, I forget the name of the actor, but there's an interview
Dan
with him,
Shor.
Dan Shor. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
He said that yeah, he plays Ram in the movie, and so he was walking around in Hollywood after they had made the movie, and this guy stopped him and said, I hate your nose. And he goes, what? he goes he goes, I animated your nose for months on the movie Tron, and I got
Oh
to
my
where
goodness.
I hated your nose. He goes, oh, okay. And
That's
they all
funny.
kind of had
That's
a
funny.
little laugh over that. But yeah, and Dan Shor, he's in the new movie as well, Tron Legacy.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
he
Yeah.
also did yeah, he's
Ram
kind of
Kinberg.
a bit character in that, and then actually he's not in the actual movie, he's in the next day short on the special edition deal that I got. There's a they did a sort of a viral um campaign that there was this they made this little short film that sort of does some stuff, films some stuff that some of the news footage that takes place in the beginning of Tron Legacy, um, and then the thing takes place after Tron Legacy, and kind of mainly focuses on the Alan, the Bruce Boxleitner character. So it's kind of a cool thing. I don't know if it's online on YouTube or not, but yeah, if you haven't seen it, you might want to check that out too. It's kind of cool thing where the main character Sam, he's taken over the company, and they do some kind of news footage of him, showing him doing some wacky things as the CEO. But yeah, but yeah,
Very
I
cool.
guess we didn't really get into the story of Tron. Basically, Tron is about this. It's kind of interesting and unusual storyline. It's the a computer programmer that programmed a few games. This other guy steals it, which is now we know is not kind of unusual for a big tech guy to steal someone's ideas and make big on it.
No, that
And so it's basically Jeff Bridges, Kevin Flynn character trying to reclaim his property and dethrone Ed Dillinger as the head of Incom, which is the name of the company. And he accidentally, in the process of trying to reclaim it, he accidentally gets digitized into the server where Tron and the big mainframe guy is at, the master overlord guy that controls the digital realm. And
yeah,
mm,
yeah, and then there's a battle, of course. Yeah, and that plot, that kind of summation has been repeated over and over again. Of course, back when this came out, it was original, but that
yeah,
has been repeated several times
yeah,
over in real
yeah,
life and in the movies,
yeah, yeah,
for sure.
and I think the co-writer of it, Bonnie MacBird, she wanted to have more of a comedy movie, and she wanted Robin Williams to play the Kevin Flynn character.
Interesting.
But as when Disney picked it up, they instead went more towards a religious angle, which is kind of unusual for a Disney project to have so much of a kind of a religious flavor to it. In that the programs that are in the server, they have identical users, and the users are sort of like these mythic god like characters that
Hmm.
the master control knows that they're out there, but they kind of make known that it's a heretical thing if you actually believe in users, and you get thrown in digital prison if and are forced to do these games that are basically actual programs are actually fighting for lives when you're playing Pac-Man or Pong or something.
Right.
That's the sort of the idea behind it. And Steve Linsberg was very revolutionary and kind of before his time in thinking that your digital life, it's actually part of you. He said, you're tying your social security number, your name, and all these details to
Your
this
ID,
this
right?
program in this digital realm. So he kind of did a one-to-one. The person that you are in reality, your digital program looks like you and has similar personality traits to you, and that that was kind of forward thinking, in that now our digital obviously our digital persona is us for all intents and purposes. I mean, you're seeing me in the computer now. You're watching me,
It's
the
interesting. Yeah.
digitized version of me. So once me and Mike log off, who knows what our digital personas are doing out there in
Who
the
knows?
digital world. Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah, yeah. And yeah, hacker and computers were not known things at all. It was more of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a somebody's dad worked at some office like where there was a computer that somebody kind of sort of knew about, but nobody, not nowhere near, like this is way before the home computer and the home PC and any of that stuff became
It was even
commonplace.
before the VCR. I mean,
Oh,
well,
absolutely. Yeah.
only rich people have VCRs back then. So, yeah, that was the thing. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Didn't filter
yeah,
down until much later, for sure. Yeah.
right, right. The technology you had in your house was a TV. You might have a record player. You
Right.
might be lucky to have a 8-track cassette
You were
player or a
you were doing good if you
cassette
had a
player.
clicker,
Yeah, I remember sitting in front of the big TV in the living room and turning that dial.
Mhm. Yeah.
And,
Oh yeah.
yeah. That was channel surfing back in the day. So yeah, it was very ahead of its time. I forget when WarGames came out, but yeah, that was another big computer movie.
I think that was in
Um,
the set. I don't know. Like, well, might as
no,
well find out
it
while
was
we're here.
definitely in the
83,
80s, but
83, 83. Yeah. I don't know why I
yeah,
thought 70s. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
That one
83.
made
So a year after.
that one made a huge impact on me. That's a
Yeah.
whole other
Mhm.
discussion for sure.
Yep. Yeah. That started the whole movie genre of clack clack clack, we're in movies.
Right. Enhance, little, throw it over to Super Troopers.
Well, Enhance is from Blade Runner originally.
Oh
When he was
yeah, that's right.
enhancing
That's right. Yeah.
yeah. Which came
Just
out the same year as Tron.
it's true. Very
And
true.
then
Yeah.
and we need to shout out the design team on this. Sid Mead, who is a huge uh, uh, designer. He designed this movie in Blade Runner. So he was called the designer of the future because he would design all these futuristic movies. And yeah, his stamp is on. He designed the tanks and the regulators, and then a lot of the Tron outfits. And then the other big designer was Mobius, which
Hmm.
is a French artist that does comic books, but also designs movies. Does design for movies, and he designed the Sky Sailor, the thing that had the kind of the transparent sails that ride through the landscape. And and yeah, that was another thing. The translucent sails. One of the things it was very hard to do them translucently.
Hmm.
CGI at the time, and the one of the guys, producers, was like, "Can't we just make that solid? Don't do translucent because yeah, it's going to take way too much time to do that." And Lisberger was like, "No, it has to be translucent. It has to be kind of that ethereal kind of beautiful sort of look at that time." And they did it, and once they got to see it on screen, the guy was like, yeah, he made the right call.
Yeah, no kidding.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's where the director didn't compromise for the vision and what they needed to see as it
Hmm.
progressed for sure. Awesome.
Yeah, he and there was when there were in so this was sure, like I said, it's a hybrid of live action
Hmm.
animation and digital CGI. It in this this was uniquely made. No movie at that time was ever made like this, and no movie since has been made like this. This is kind of a unique monster in and of itself. And it's sort of like one of those catching lightning in a bottle kind of things. It's and also the crazy thing is the they were not nominated for Academy Award for special effects. The Academy said that they were ineligible because they used computers and that was cheating.
Oh wow, that's a smack in the face. That's so
Yeah.
funny. What a far cry from today, isn't it?
Yeah, and to think that was how little people knew about computers. Everybody knew about computers, but they did not know computers. They had no idea of the massive man hours and people they had to use to actually create those effects. Whereas if I guess they were doing that with miniatures or whatnot, or kind of a guy in a monster suit, it would have took far less time. But yeah.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. This was a its own unique thing that grew and became. I don't quite know like what the gap in time was. Obviously, aside from the actual history, the actual years that passed, but moving from here to there, this was like I said, I was kind of glad when you picked this one, and you floated it up because like I hadn't seen it in forever, and this is like one of those fun movies that you like to go back and watch periodically. That captures like your imagination.
Yeah.
And now computers are I mean, computer hacker. It's just like it's a whole different world from now to then.
Yeah, and shout out to Jeff Bridges because Bruce Boxleitner, he's the Tron program in the Tron universe, and he's very much sort of a program, kind of no nonsense, kind of straightforward. And most of the characters in that Tron universe are programs, so they don't have too much of a personality. It's Jeff Bridges on Jeff Bridges' shoulders to come on and give life and personality and sort of that humoristic edge to the whole thing, and he carries the whole movie. And the actors that spoke of him in the DVD were saying that Kevin Flynn character was Jeff Bridges. That's who he was at that time. He was kind of one-to-one kind of relationship, and the Jeff Bridges character, Kevin Flynn in the movie, often reminds me of the forward Han Solo character in the Star Wars movies, sort of that glib sort of has a line for everything as he kind of wanders his way through the universe respectively.
You might not know his next step, but he sure knows his next step for sure. That kind of classic kind of character for sure. Indeed.
Yeah.
Well,
And
Jeff, go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna go on to something else so you can finish up your thoughts on Jeff.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna mention that's a good bridge to the next one because I believe he makes an appearance in the in Tron 2010.
Oh, okay. And then one other thing on the original Tron, there's a scene where Alan, the real life persona of the Tron program, he goes to his he's in his cubicle, and he stands up, and there's a scene where it shows the vast cubicle wilderness of the office with all of the cubicles. That's that painting. That the left section is actual cubicles, and someone did a matte painting for the other half to make it so vast. And it was, that's the magic of those matte paintings, is you can't really tell. It was very it just looks like they had found like this huge office to be in. But in his cubicle, and at the time we hardly ever saw cubicles in a movie. I mean, that is usually an office or something. So this is one of the first views of a cubicle computer type setting for at that time, where it's commonplace now. But up on his cubicle, there's a kind of a banner that was printed out. It says Gort click to Barada Niktu, which I recognized as the line in Army of Darkness, Evil Dead Army of Darkness, when you're summoning the evil spirits from the Necronomicon, which I guess I just did, so their evil spirits are going to come at us. but that line is actually originally from the old movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, and the robot alien that comes down. He says that to one of the protagonists, to tell Gort, his companion. Basically, he told her to say that if by chance he died, which the translation is, do not retaliate if I'm dead, Gort. Gort is the character. So kind of interesting having that kind of Easter egg in the movie Tron, and then that that also got used, and that line got used in Army of Darkness as a summoning. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting through line for that. And then also there's the scene where they're getting kind of getting into Incom to hack into the system. And there's a scene where this big door kind of opens up, and it's a huge door, and the Jeff Bridges character says, "Oh, that's a big door." And but they actually went to an actual kind of data center that had all that lab stuff and everything. And then off to the side, when they filmed that scene, they had this kind of a kind of security tape around that had roped off this area, and evidently there was a nuclear chemical kind of spill there, or a chemical spill. And they said, don't cross that line. And Bruce Boxleitner, he was like, he was thinking at the time, how is that tape protecting us from exposure?
Right.
And Cindy Morgan, who plays Laura in the movie, she said that after they filmed it, she wasn't paying attention, and she was walking wherever, and everybody said stop, and she had accidentally stepped off the area into the taped off area, and they had to come over and remove her shoe and
Oh my God.
detox it and everything. So
Holy cow.
was going on there.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And one last thing that I remember, David Warner, who plays the evil baddie in it, Ed Dillinger, the actual he did a great job. He's a long line of British actors playing the evil character, but yeah, he did a great job. And but they originally had asked Peter O'Toole to be the character, and Peter O'Toole was very excited about it, and he came on board and came on set and was looking for all the tanks and all of the army and all that stuff that he read in Tron, and he realized that it was all going to be computer generated. He was like, I don't know what this is, and he bowed out.
That's so funny.
Quit. Yeah, he quit the project, and that's when they hired David Warner to do it.
Well, fortunate for us. Too bad.
Yeah.
Too bad, Peter O'Toole.
Yeah. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I think that's everything. As we talk about legacy, I might go back to Tron, but
well, and this is the original, so there's a lot to say for sure.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
I'm surprised, like, at that rating, really. 6.7 out of 10. We hardly pay attention to this sometimes, but I think that's interesting in and of itself. But
yeah,
I would imagine nostalgia would add at least 1 point to that, 1 full point for sure, maybe 1.5, but whatever, that's fine.
It's one of those cult movies that has remained a cult movie. Like there's some movies that are quote cult movies that with today's audiences, it's still a huge project. It's still huge. But with Tron, I think it still retains that definite call, and I think it has something to do with the storyline. There's not like there is sort of a love interest, but not really. Jeff Bridges is broken up with the female lead in the movie, and he's kind of startled about almost towards the end of the movie when he runs upon her program, and they do share a kiss at point, but they're the main love stories between Tron and the female program, but they're not like the main characters of the movie. Pretty much, it's more or less Kevin Flynn. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic, and it's an unusual story. I mean, especially at the time, a programmer trying to reclaim his program by going through a digital world. I mean, it was very hard for people to wrap their head around. Obviously at the time, and it really fed into kids, and kids love the world of it, but they don't they too when they first see it, they don't really understand the story either. I mean,
Right.
obviously, for the most part, they know he's going in to retrieve something, but they really don't completely understand. At least I didn't. I didn't understand fully what the target goal for Kevin Flynn was for the story. So I think the story kind of hampers it in a way, but the visuals and everything else kind of uplifts the movie. So yeah, I can't say that is the best written movie in the world,
Right.
but
I agree with that.
it serves its purpose.
I agree with that. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And these are, and this is amazing that they could even encapsulate the abstractness and then put it to film the way they did. It's no wonder like why some other for the screenplay or whatever, when they were shopping it around or whatever, like why other companies didn't come along and be like, oh yeah, grab onto it, because it would be like, oh, that's okay, we're good.
Yeah, yeah, and one of the one of the things they would invite the guys that from the studios to come over to their offices, and they had their office was covered. It was a small room, but they covered it in these large paintings with the kind of the backlighting with the neon art and stuff, so they could get an idea of what the world would look like. And everybody that would come in was like, oh well, this is really cool. But then when they try to convince them that it could be done as a movie, that's when they all kind of step back. It's like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to invest into this.
Right,
But
right, right.
oddly enough, Disney was the ones that wanted to do it. And
And they
we're
did, and they did.
yep.
And
Yeah.
not only did they do it, but they also followed up 30 years later or so, and
Yep.
or 28
Yeah.
years, as it were,
Yeah. Yep.
and do the follow-up, which is a
Mhm.
perfect segue to the second one. Now, between these two, and I remember being, I wouldn't say that Tron is like any kind. The original Tron is like a monolithic kind of thing in my life at all, because like
Right.
I,
Right.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had my fun with it and whatnot. But I remembered it enough to be captivated enough to want to go see this when this came out
Mhm.
back in 2010,
Yep.
for sure. So and they did. I think they did a very solid follow up.
Yeah.
Of course, it's 30 years later. It could have been a train wreck easily, especially with the
Right.
subject matter what we just covered. So abstract. It never
Mhm.
kind of outside of nostalgia and a cult classic, that kind of thing. It didn't kind of it didn't reach the pinnacle of other properties, IP, like Star Wars or that kind
Mhm.
of thing. But it was definitely its own thing, like definitely a niche. I'd say probably it definitely was more of a niche thing than not.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
be
And
fair, but
yeah, and Tron was done by a first-time director, and this one was done by a first-time director as well. And then the guys that wrote the script, they were lifelong fans of Tron, so it was in their DNA, so to speak. So they definitely wanted to do the film right, and and they also got the Steve Lisberger, who did the original, on board, and he I think he's one of the producers of it. But on the outset, he knew he wasn't young enough to do those all nighters again, and so he kind of blessed them onto the project. He kind of oversaw it and was on set a lot of times, but they actually asked him a lot about it, and he loved the fact that the that it was going to be a father-son relationship,
right. Mhm.
because at the time of them filming it, his son was the same age as the Sam character, the main character in this movie. So it really kind
Oh,
of keyed into his emotions, as far as this was a good idea to follow up the movie with. And
This was this is fun to rewatch, and it was just pretty good all around. I'd say I think it hit all the marks that it needed to. I do remember the marketing was a lot bigger for it than I like. They had a lot of tie-ins and whatnot, to, like, the same, like, the not the Happy Meals or whatever, but like the special meals that you could get, and the I kind of making it up, but I kind of think like there was like a Mountain Dew kind of tie-in, or I don't know, whatever, but it doesn't matter. But they definitely promoted this for sure. I do remember that.
Yeah.
And I remember going in and seeing it, and being pretty satisfied with it coming out.
Yep.
It wasn't the greatest, awesomest movie ever, but it held its own. Didn't suck at all. It was a solid base hit, I would say, for sure.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it when it first came out. I love the music. I got the soundtrack from Daft Punk.
Oh,
and
that's true.
I spun those tracks quite a bit. But yeah, on rewatching it, it doesn't hold up quite as well as the original viewings of it. The story, like the first Tron, isn't the strongest aspect of it. I mean, it's basically the son in search for his father, who's been absent for a few decades, and so it's his search for his father, and who father has gotten trapped on the server that the original Tron took place on. And so yeah, it's it's kind of, it's one of those stories that, as long as you don't kind of think logically and think much about it, all kind of works. But if you start focusing in and kind of breaking apart, some of it falls apart. Like the fact that it makes sense in a way that over time, over the almost 3 decades, that the programs would get more sophisticated and they would become more realistic. But you're dealing with a server that's been in this abandoned arcade for 3 decades. The server has maintained itself for 3 decades with no upkeep, and is still powered on and working, and contains this whole universe. And there's been no upgrades to it, no system upgrades, no upgrade to RAM or processing or anything. And it's able to create this world. So yeah, it's if you don't think too far technologically, it makes sense.
Of course, we're kind of chuckling here because IT is our chosen career path, for sure, and that's just not unheard of. But unless you're talking about something like the Voyager spacecraft, that's way far out there, that has like, even if they could update it or upgrade it, they're not going to, because there's a whole life cycle thing that happens with all that. But you don't want to dig too far into the computer aspects. But this also kind of reminded me and jogged my memory of there's a Saturday morning cartoon called Reboot. Very Tron-like in some ways, like where you're into the system and whatnot, but that never really got too big. I think they did a derivative of it later on, but in any case, it's still that fascination of like what's inside a machine and all that kind of thing, and what it takes to make them work, and everything there. But yeah, I agree with you. The special effects were really good. Obviously modern day, so they didn't have near the limitations. I don't think they came up with. I don't think they ran across anything that they couldn't do. Right. Like where they had to struggle, and it showed on Tron.
Right.
For the innovation.
The cool thing about this movie, even though it's in a digital world, the director, he wanted to film everything as much as he could practically, so that the world seemed more real. So that so obviously when the regulators flying around, obviously that's CGI and it looks cool and everything, but like the every set that they could build, he built so that everything was realistic. So so that it didn't suffer the same fate as say Phantom Menace, where everything except for the actors is digital. There's more of a
Massive green,
tactile, yeah.
green
Yeah,
screen.
exactly. Exactly. So yeah, that plays to its benefit. And Steve Linsberg had a really cool uh phrasing for this. This server is not connected to the wide web, so it's off to itself. So he's described this universe as the digital Galapagos Islands, to where it was cut off from everything, kind of developed its own way, which I thought was a really cool idea. The more I read and interviews with Steve Linsberg, the more I was kind of raptured in the way he thinks. He's very forward thinking, and he has some really cool ideas even now of what's to come in the future. And those type of people, often they're artists or scientists or whatever, that can kind of predict what's going on. I always love the way that their mind kind of works and how they process and see things. It's something kind of some. I wish I could have I could have that vision, to kind of step forward and kind of see where things will progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I did enjoy this movie when I saw it in the theater. I did enjoy it very much.
Yeah.
Not to the point of like, some movies just capture your heart and soul and they stick with you for a long time. This wasn't quite that level, but it definitely did. I think it did justice to the legacy, and you can tell that they wanted to do more with it. But I think they held back because it didn't quite have the widespread appeal as maybe they were anticipating. And they probably ramped down, like Tron 3 or whatever, like going on. Who knows, it might come again, but
Well,
it
no,
just didn't quite.
I've got some news about that.
Oh
But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I saw
kind
the
of,
little IMDb thing, so I figured there was something afoot, maybe.
yeah, there. Yeah, I was kind of surprised that they didn't follow up, because it did do well. And they had planned for a sequel, and they were actually ramping up production start in 2015, but
Oh.
Tomorrowland was a massive flop. And so they as soon as that flopped, they kind of killed the Neutron. So blame George Clooney and Tomorrowland, curse both their names for the loss of it. But but the thought of a sequel never quite died. They kind of suspended it. I don't think they actually canceled it. So right now I think they announced a new director for the new one, and the new plan is for a new one to come out in 2025. So we'll have that to look forward to, maybe. We never know, because the odd thing is, well, the cool thing in the special 20th anniversary DVD that came out in 2002, at the end of the big documentary, they were speculating on the future of Tron, and showed some sketches for the movie Tron 2.0 that Steve Linsberg was kind of sketching for. So yeah, even in 2002 they were planning on a sequel with Steve Linsberg. So and then that's sort of like Hollywood anyway. Some ideas in stories and scripts kind of bang around for decades before they actually get made. So
yeah, it's a shame that they went all in like they did with Tomorrowland, because it wasn't something really anybody was asking for. But I bet you if you were to put it to a poll, I bet you there's a lot more Tron interest than Tomorrowland. Tomorrowland is
oh yeah,
thing that's kind of fictional thing based on a ride, and it has its own history. And I'm not saying anything bad about that, but like as far as it goes, like I nobody, like I would.
Yep.
It's easy. Would you rather see a Tron 3 or something more Tron related, or would you rather see something along Tomorrowland?
Yep. Yeah, and
Tron,
yeah, and
hands
even
down.
yeah, exactly. And even with Tron Legacy, Disney was kind of cold feeding it all the way because they'd got their director, and so what he did was, and Jeff Bridges was on board again. So that and with Jeff Bridges being on board, that bolstered the project even more. So yeah, he's been a champion of Tron for from the very start of things,
That's
and
awesome.
they did. And there were kind of Disney was, well, how in this post Matrix world, because obviously Matrix is sort of kind of has drawn inspiration from Tron. Uh,
Hmm.
how would you do a Tron movie? So they did. They quickly did a kind of CGI thing with Jeff Bridges and put it out on Comic-Con and showed it to an audience. And so depending on how the audience reacted was going to depend on if Disney did the movie or not. And they showed a clip in the interviews extras on the Blu-ray of showing that clip and the audience going nuts when Jeff Bridges shows up halfway through it, and it's like, okay, yeah, yeah, they got this. Yeah, so that's so Jeff Bridges is kind of the champion. And one of the funnier things is on the DVD from 2002 with those interviews, they interviewed Jeff Bridges. And while he's talking, he pulled out his original helmet from Tron movie and put it on his head. And he
Oh
was like,
man,
he goes, once a week, I just put this on and just have to chill out.
that's awesome. And that's why the fandom and the nerdom loves Jeff Bridges. He
Mm,
like I. Well, he's not getting any younger. I hope they do something with him soon. If they're going to do
yeah,
something, 2025 is perfectly fine by me as long as they pay homage where they need to for
yeah,
Jeff. For
yeah.
sure. Yeah, he's one of those beloved. Kind of like, okay, so our nowadays we have Keanu Reeves is like just this beloved figure. And I'm not going to argue that Jeff Bridges has always been that, but he
Yeah.
definitely has he has nothing but goodwill behind him. Like one of those celebrities that's kind of
Hmm.
been able to stay above the
Yeah.
fray of the things that have
Yeah.
just pulled down even bigger and badder, actors that haven't been able to
Hmm.
stand the test of time.
Yeah.
Of course, there's
Yeah.
Bridges is
Mhm.
he's tied in with Big Lebowski and all these other ones that are cult class,
Mhm.
even more cult classics than
Mhm.
than Tron is, or
Mhm.
same concept essentially, but
Yeah. And I remember at the time being kind of impressed with the digital Jeff Bridges. It doesn't hold up
uh,
over the decade. It works. It works for what it is. But
I
yeah,
I would agree with that. No, I think it works. It's perfectly serviceable. It doesn't.
yeah,
Nothing. When I remember seeing it, I remember I was not pulled out of the movie or had to
no, yeah,
suspend disbelief. Like that kind of thing. Like it was just it worked very well for what it was. Just too bad it could have been bigger and badder than what it ended up being. But
hmm,
I mean, the fact
yeah,
that we're talking about it and the fact that there is still something there, there's still gas in the tank for sure
yeah,
for this.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
The only thing that kind of fell down in this movie, especially if you're watching back to back, they do take everything from the original movie and kind of tweak it and modernize it. You got the light cycles, you got the cell, the big the train thing. You got the regulators, you got all of that stuff from the original movie that they enhance. But they didn't have like a Sid Mead or a Mobius on this project to
Mhm.
put in their own fresh ideas. There's nothing really cool that stands out visually that's not from the original Tron,
So
to
it's a
me
fair criticism.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
so I
I think
mean,
that's
no,
right.
and it works. It works, and it's a beautiful tribute to the original, and visually, sonically, the soundtrack, everything works. And I think the weaker aspect is a script which could be laid against the original one as well. and then the thing that the original has over this one is that even though it was a Disney film, the original movie, they kind of did it in their own bubble. Disney kind of let them do whatever they wanted. So it has that very much independent energy to it, this sort of on the edge, sort of, devil may care, we're going to throw everything at it, see what works kind of attitude that makes it kind of key but original and just a movie unto itself. Whereas this movie, very much sleeker, very much a studio movie with lots of money, looks very glamorous. Obviously, it is kind of softened some of the edges of the original movie, made it in one sense a little bit cooler, but it's not as unique or as quirky as the original. It doesn't have that as much of a personality as the original movie. I still enjoy it. It's a very good tribute. It did stumble. It could have been a horrendous mess. It
Oh
was.
God.
I still like it, but it's not. It's more of a Disney movie than the original movie, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. Yeah, it's much more rehashed, kind of not I'm not going to go so far as to say like leftovers, like reheated leftovers. It's kind of insulting, but not at all.
Right.
But it definitely has more of a commercial push behind it than it did for the original kind of what we're not quite sure what this is going to be. And like I said, credit where due, Disney certainly was innovative at one point in time. I'm not saying that they can't be innovative again as well, but when it comes to this, like I said, like they were not afraid to push the ball forward where it counted, and they should be absolutely given credit for that where due. But yeah, this is just like one of those fun things, like where if you saw it with your kiddo or whatever, it's such a fun thing to go revisit. And it hits you in all the feels like it did for me, for sure. I know it did for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, and God bless Jeff Bridges. Like 2022, 2023, 2024, 2022, or 2025 better stay away for the amount of craziness that we've been having to experience the last 2-3 years, and it can go to hell.
Yeah, I've been meaning to watch Jeff Bridges' FX show, The Old Man. Haven't seen it yet, but
oh, interesting. Yeah, well, we might have to
yeah.
cover that one if there's a tie in there, for sure. Yeah, I enjoy Jeff Bridges and everything he's in. Like, I don't think there's a bad movie he's ever been in that truly sucks. Like, really sucks. Like 1-star sucks. That kind of thing.
Yeah, the standout. Oh, I don't know if they pulled it off, but the Olivia Wilde character, Cora, the director, and I think the writers said that they wanted her to be more of an androgynous character, so they had her have a short haircut. Looking at that picture, I don't see an androgynous myself.
Look, and Olivia Wilde comes from the world of screenplay or X-Play and G4 and all that. That was back like when she kind of transitioned from like eye candy video game nerds, like only those folks knew her, to being an actress, an actual bona fide actress. And I remember she did quite a few movies that were good enough. Yeah, I don't get that. I don't get androgyny from her at all. That's like trying to put a sheet over a Michelangelo sculpture and being like, oh, it's covered. No, it's not going to work. You're going to see the beauty throughout no matter what, for sure.
Yeah, which I'm not complaining. I do. I enjoyed her character, and I thought she looked great in this movie.
Yeah, she did a great job. Yeah, she did a great job.
I'm just scared of if this was made in 2022 and they would, or the character androgynous, what they would ended up with today. But that's neither nor there.
I don't even want to think about it. Let's not even go there, because I won't have anything good to say. Probably more than that.
And then the standout performance in this is Michael Sheen as I forget his character name, but he does his character is very reminiscent of David Bowie. So he kind of pumped up the David Bowie energy in the role, and yeah, that whole scene where he's in is quite wonderful.
Yeah, I'd agree with
Yeah,
that.
Castor, yeah, is his character. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
very much 70s Bowie kind of vibe going on.
Yeah, not quite Ziggy Stardust, but
Mm,
definitely along those lines for sure. Like
mm,
this famous, all that good stuff.
mm,
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to
yeah.
be insulting or anything, but yeah,
Mm.
then David Bowie is such a classic. Now I want to go listen to David Bowie. Yeah, no, this was a great. They did justice to it. I think we'll be lucky if we can see a Tron 3 or whatever the hell they end
Yep.
up
Yeah.
naming it, if that's the thing. But you
Mm,
can never go wrong with like a classic father
mm,
son kind of type,
yeah.
thing.
Right. And then
Sure.
yeah, for and I guess I should have said this at the beginning, but the original Tron, one of the inspiration was Steve Lisberg seeing a Pong game, Pong where you're bouncing the ball back and forth, and him wondering, what if there was a program or a personality was a machine that was those paddles.
Mm,
That's and it's easier to think of, when playing like GTA, maybe seeing your character run around, what does that character do off in his free time, like and that's the basic idea for Free Guy with the NPC characters, but very forward thinking of Steve Linsberg to have the forethought to think those stupid paddles that was bouncing that ball around as having a personality and being a person, maybe, which was very cool. And also in Tron, there's little references, Easter eggs, in one of the big wall displays of where they're looking at for readouts or whatever. There's a little tiny little Pac-Man doing his little mouth thing in it, and then when that solar cell was you know traveling the beam of light through the
right,
landscape,
following
if you
along like
look,
that laser
yeah,
beam. Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Uh huh.
yeah. There's on the terrain, you see an outline of Mickey Mouse if you look closely.
Oh, I did not. Oh, damn. Now I'm gonna have to go back and watch it again. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Good Easter egg.
yeah, and but yeah, and even with the light cycles, that that is a cool scene for one thing, and never seen before, and that was one of the things that sold every kid on seeing that movie, was that light cycle scene. But it's a cool video game idea of not hitting the beam, and
Right.
it's been reproduced all over. Like there's a mode in GTA 5 online, where you're riding light cycles and you're playing five against five different players, and you're
That's really cool.
running around, trying to not cross beams or whatever. So yeah, it's a game mechanic that works to this day, that's still
That's
fun to
awesome.
play.
That's awesome. That's really cool. That's neat.
So yeah, that's yeah, like that,
That's
all
awesome.
all around that Steve Linsberg. And then I was looking at his movie career. He's only done a couple other movies, and he and neither one of them was kind of a goofy comedy with John Cusack, but yeah. So I don't know what else he's done. It's probably since animation studio. I'm sure he did like animation for advertising or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of a shame that he wasn't able to do another kind of groundbreaking movie like Tron. But as he did do Tron, and we will forever have that.
Yeah, that's for sure. I was gonna say, kind of coming up here, rolling up on the end of this stuff. What would you give
Mhm.
this as a rating, like as far as it goes for? Because I really disagree with this six and a
Oh,
half.
absolutely.
I would say that it's a 7-7 easy for me
Yeah,
personally.
seven and a half. As far as um, being a innovative movie, I would give it 10 out of 10. But yeah, as a movie overall, 7.5 would be my take. I would give it a 7.5, and then the its sequel a 7.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, I think that it's a much softer 7 that you could argue down to, like, where I fully agree with, like,
6.5. Yeah.
yeah, 6.5, 6.8. Yeah, that makes sense. But 6, 7. Of course, we learned last week you can't trust, and you never really could trust these numbers here. The big megacorp, that's a whole other thing. And I'm sure we'll get into that in the grab bag maybe a little bit this week.
Yeah.
But yeah. So shame on you, IMDb, with these crazy little zany silliness that 6 and you cannot
Amazon.
put Amazon. Yeah, Bezos. Anyway, yeah. But aside from, let's not spoil such a good fun and remembrance for this movie.
Right? Yeah. I remember many a day I was out in the yard, the frisbee, and I was Tron throwing that disc around.
Yeah, the light cycles alone, I didn't really talk about it, but the light cycles alone sparked my fascination with motorcycles in a certain frame of reference. And then later on, years later, I became a motorcyclist. There's just something unique about that. That is always going to be eye-catching, no matter what year you put it in. Even 100 years from now, like, who knows what they'll have in 100 years, but that whole kind of thing is such a groundbreaking, unique. But when you see that, that is, there are things that just transcend time and nostalgia. And if you were to put up either the light disc or kind of like that kind of that lighting on the clothing and the outline and or the light cycle itself, there's no mistaking what that is. That is for damn sure. For sure.
Yeah. And Tron, they made frisbees cool, which is not easy to do. And then one last story before we go. Bruce Boxleitner, he recalled in the interview that Steve Lisberger, at the time while they were filming the original Tron, he went up to Bruce, is like, I think you've been slacking. I don't think you've been training very hard on the disc. He goes, we're gonna shoot the scene. There's a scene when Jeff Bridges' character Kevin Flynn is walking across that walk, and he sees Tron being those 4 different guys with his disc, and he takes them all out. There's a scene where Bruce Boxleitner catches the disc behind his head and pulls it forward, and then he recalls that day Steve Lisberger, he's throwing them from a ladder up above him. He's throwing them down at him. He threw that disc as hard as he could, and on that first take, Bruce catches it.
That's awesome.
And he catches it, and he looks up at Steve, is like, what? Like, what? Because he made Bruce mad, because Steve was like, and he realized that Steve was pushing his buttons and was really playing him up, like, you haven't been practicing, you're not good. And so and he wanted that anger, that energy of that scene of him,
that's smart,
forcefully getting that disc, and then Steve gets down from that ladder, and he just breaks out in a smile, starts laughing. You did it.
That's awesome. That's a great story to end with, for sure.
Yep.
Good stuff. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Thomas, for joining me this week. This one was a awesome walk down memory lane. And even better, we'll do a follow-up show should there be any more news about this. But we'll probably throw it in a grab bag and mention it in passing. But for sure,
there is a cartoon, Tron Uprising. I've never seen it. It's supposed to bridge the gap between Tron and Tron Legacy. Came out at the same time as Tron Legacy. I'm sure it's on Disney Plus if anyone's interested. If anyone's seen it and love it, and you can put a comment down below telling us we should watch it. We're boneheads for not covering it. Subscribe, make a comment.
Please. Yeah, we by all means, if it's a significant, like, we might do an addendum follow-up too, for sure.
Yep.
To add it into our DVD extras.
Yep.
For sure. All right. Well, that's this week's take on Tron and Tron Legacy. Again, like Thomas said, you don't like what we're doing, let us know. If you like what we're doing, if you have some ideas along these lines that have inspired you for Tron or whatever, let us know. Comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I've been Mike.
Ring the bell for notification. And this is
Ring
Thomas.
the bell.
Yep.
Yeah.
End of line.
Repeat quote. End of line.
End of line.
Yeah. All right. See ya.
See ya.